Hello, and welcome to the stormwater drainage improvements for Center Street on Folly Beach, South Carolina. Project update, winter 2024. This project is focused on the storm drain system tributary to the Center Street outfall at the Folly River. This is the image on the left, as well as the storm drain system tributary to the outfall at East Erie Avenue at 8th Block. This is the image on the top right. The existing storm drain system along Center Street will be upgraded to increase capacity and reduce flooding. The existing storm drain system at East Erie Avenue and 8th Street East will also be improved to reduce flooding. This stormwater infrastructure improvements project is being funded in whole by a South Carolina Infrastructure Investment Program, also called a SCIP grant, which is administered by the South Carolina Rural Infrastructure Authority and funded by federal, state, and local fiscal recovery funds through the American Rescue Plan Act. The total estimated project cost, including design, permitting, and construction, is approximately $6 million. The Wood Engineering Group performed an island-wide drainage study and stormwater system assessment for the city of Folly Beach in the year 2020. The two project locations for this stormwater improvement project were among many potential improvements identified in the stormwater system assessment. The Center Street location was selected because it would provide the most benefit to the most people. Center Street is the only road on and off the island, and it also includes the majority of the island's businesses and access points to public service buildings. The outfall and upstream storm drain network at East Erie Avenue and 8th Street East were selected because the outfall there is the only other outfall that has not been upgraded recently. The Charleston County Stormwater Program Permitting Standards and Procedures Manual was used to develop storm scenarios for the existing conditions and future condition models in the Wood Report. The 10-year, 24-hour design storm, which is 7 inches of rain with a king tide of 3.45 feet, was used for modeling the existing conditions in the report. This same storm scenario was adjusted to include a 20% increase in total rainfall for the future conditions model, with 8.4 inches of rain and a king tide of 3.45 feet. The image on the left shows the current conditions on Center Street under the existing conditions storm scenario, with the blue shading indicating surface ponding of water due to an undersized stormwater conveyance system. The image on the right shows the future conditions with proposed improvements under the future conditions storm scenario, leading to increased conveyance and storage capacity and a decrease in surface ponding of water. Tidal impact on stormwater systems. On this board, we wanted to communicate how tides impact the stormwater systems on barrier islands. On the upper left-hand side of the board, you will find 3 images that show tidal flooding on Center Street on Folly Beach. Additionally, the image on the lower left-hand side of the board shows the drainage network. Pipes are in pink and channels are in green, with the location of our public engagement meeting circled in red. As we saw on December 17th flood map, most of this area was completely inundated and the stormwater system was inoperable. Moving to the right-hand side of the board, we can see the driving factors behind tidal flooding as it relates to the outfalls of drainage networks. In the high tide scenario, we see that the tide has completely backflowed into the outfall pipe and is coming up and out of the storm drain, causing all runoff from rainfall to also back up into ditches, roads, and properties. Conversely, the low tide scenario shows how drainage systems function once the tide recedes. For us to manage the low elevations and minimal availability of relief along Center Street, we will be using inline tidal check valves to block the tide from backflowing into the stormwater system during high tide events. These check valves prevent backflow but also limit the outflow of stormwater during high tide events. For this reason, larger stormwater pipes are required along Center Street to provide for as much capacity as possible to hold stormwater throughout the duration of high tide. Once the tide recedes, the stormwater is then free to exit the system into the marsh. The flood extents and depths, the white to blue gradient displayed in this map, represent the average highest high tide for Folly Beach, as defined by the NOAA-supported tide gauge at the Folly River Bridge. To create this map, our team used the elevation assigned to the mean higher high water tidal datum, which is equivalent to a 5.83 foot tide. A tidal datum is established at tide gauges across the country every 19 years and represent a standard elevation defined by a certain phase of the tide. Tidal datums are used as references to measure local water levels and provide information to engineers that is critical to developing effective stormwater designs. We felt this map would be useful to communicate what an average high tide on Folly Beach looks like graphically, and what impact this kind of tide might have on the stormwater system along Center Street. Additionally, this is what the tide would look like on Folly Beach if you were to see a 5.83 foot tide while checking the local tide gauge's website. Like the mean higher high water tide map, this map provides a rough estimation of what the tide may have looked like during a recent and relatable flood event. The December 17th, 2023 tide was the highest tide on record for the Charleston area outside of a named storm event and was only a few inches below what was recorded during Hurricane Hugo. When we checked the local tide gauges around Folly Beach, our team noticed a reading of 9.8 feet. This storm caused major flooding throughout the Low Country and gives an example of what flooding may have looked like during this extreme event and how it would have impacted the stormwater system on Center Street. We would like to note that this map does not factor in rainfall, which would have certainly increased the depth and spread of flooding across the island. This map was also developed in the same manner as the mean higher high water tide map by comparing the water surface elevation to ground surface elevations across the island. Construction summary. The existing stormwater drainage system beneath Center Street will be replaced and upsized to increase system capacity. The blue lines in the left image are the anticipated storm drainage locations. Catch basins or inlets will be placed along the blue lines as needed. The green boundaries are the project area and potential construction extents. Using the natural drainage divide, East Huron, East Hudson, East Erie, East Cooper, and East Ashley Avenues, new stormwater drainage systems will be designed to collect runoff and discharge to the upgraded Center Street stormwater drainage system. The existing separate stormwater drainage system that runs along 2nd Street East will remain in place. It will collect the remaining portions of East Huron, East Hudson, East Erie, East Cooper, and East Ashley Avenues that do not drain to Center Street. In the top right corner of the map is a separate area of study at an existing stormwater drainage outfall point near East Erie Avenue and 8th Street East to the east of Center Street. Storm drain connectivity will be reestablished, and catch basins or inlets will be installed to reduce nuisance flooding in the area. All proposed marsh outfalls will utilize tidal valves to prevent the high tides from rushing back into the new storm drain systems. The new and upsized storm drain pipes will allow for stormwater storage during high tide to reduce flooding on the surface. Potential impacts. The majority of construction impacts will take place on the eastern side of Center Street, beneath the street parking and sidewalks. Construction is anticipated to be phased starting at the Folly River Park to limit construction impacts to smaller areas. Pedestrian access to businesses will be maintained during the entire construction process. Temporary traffic patterns on Center Street will utilize the center shared turning lane for northbound traffic that's traffic moving towards the Folly River, and Eastern Street access will be maintained by temporary flagging or a short detour if necessary. The installation of cross-line drainage pipe connecting the western side of Center Street storm drainage to the main drainage system on the eastern side may be necessary to collect and drain stormwater to the west. Post-construction benefits. By increasing the capacity of the stormwater drainage system, we can help provide safer transportation for first responders during emergencies and increase mobility for vehicular and pedestrian traffic. The stormwater drainage system will be designed with the future in mind to provide a more resilient infrastructure. Tidal influence overflows will be reduced, which can help reduce potential property and infrastructure damage. Residential scale stormwater practices. Residents can take action to help manage water on personal property using green infrastructure. These landscape level practices can be used to manage water on site and reduce strain on the centralized system. Green infrastructure works to mimic pre-development hydrology by allowing water the opportunity to slow down and to infiltrate, as opposed to stormwater runoff that contributes to community flooding. In this section, more information is provided on the residential scale green infrastructure practices that are most applicable to the Folly Beach community. A rain garden is a landscape depression that manages stormwater runoff by providing a place for water to slow down and to infiltrate. The soils and plants present in a rain garden do the heavy lifting by filtering and absorbing the water through natural processes. A rain garden is typically planted with plants native to the region. Native plants are adapted to local conditions, such as the sandy soils typically found on Folly Beach. Native plants also provide for pollinators and help to create a healthy local ecology. The shape of a rain garden is what makes it a unique landscape feature. When installing a rain garden, the designer should plan to dig down at least 12 inches deep to create ponding depth. That is, the space for water to be temporarily stored, allowing time for infiltration. A rain garden, if designed correctly, should drain within 72 hours. This is well ahead of the time required for mosquito breeding. Soil amendments, vegetation, and mulch will all be added to the area, bringing the original 12 inches deep closer to the 6-inch ponding depth. To learn more about a rain garden design, visit clemson.edu/raingarden. When more than one green infrastructure practice is used in combination, the resulting treatment train approach is an effective strategy to manage water. Rainwater harvesting is the practice of collecting and storing rainwater runoff from a rooftop for later use, typically used for irrigation. When a rain barrel is full, the overflow can be directed to a rain garden, allowing multiple opportunities for water to slow down and to infiltrate. Traditional pavement used in driveways and sidewalks is impermeable. Water runs off of these surfaces and into the adjacent area. By using porous pavement technology, water infiltrates paved areas where the water is stored underground. The reduction of volume of stormwater runoff can reduce pressure on the centralized drainage system, as well as manage water on site in both residential and community scale applications. Porous pavement can be incorporated into a site during initial construction or as a retrofit. The three main types of porous pavement typologies are porous asphalt, pervious concrete, and interlocking pavers. Here is a local Folly Beach case study. This resident removed a concrete sidewalk and replaced it with a 57 stone base and stepping stones to create an infiltration trench. Adjacent to this pathway was compacted turf mix. This was removed and replaced with a rain garden planted with native plants. The before and after pictures demonstrate that the practices installed have helped this resident manage rainfall on site. Home retrofit. There are a range of actions that homeowners can take to adapt their properties to mitigate flooding. Modifications to existing buildings can help mitigate flood impacts and reduce damage to structures and belongings. Modifications include small-scale adjustments to existing spaces, such as installing a sump pump to a garage, as well as larger scale transformations, such as elevating a building. The most appropriate option will depend on the vulnerability of a home to potential flooding. Other factors that may influence the most appropriate options include the age of the building, type and condition of the structure, and the cost of the measure compared with the potential cost of damage. Dry floodproofing. This involves preparing a space or modifying a space to keep water out of the building. Dry floodproofing includes a range of options that could be appropriate for a home, depending on how much the owner wants to spend, their capacity to maintain an operable system, and the impacts they have experienced in the past. Home elevation occurs when the existing home is elevated and lifted above the base flood elevation. The area beneath the home is used for parking, storage, and other non-livable space uses. Instead of elevating the entire home, it may be possible to elevate utilities to reduce vulnerability. Wet floodproofing is not used for livable spaces in a home. Areas that are wet floodproofed are designed to flood. Building materials that are flood resistant are utilized. These materials include concrete, stone, clay, ceramic tile, metal, and pressure treated lumber. Thank you. We hope you have enjoyed learning about the Center Street Stormwater Drainage Improvement Project. Community input is an integral part of the project. We hope that you will consider joining us for a future engagement event. To stay tuned on project status and opportunities to get involved, please monitor the project website at cityoffollybeach.com/Center Street Drainage.